What does GCF stand for?
Graphing.
Greatest common factor.
I was close.
So we're going to look at every term in our problem, and we're going to look at the numbers in front first, and we're going to say, all right, what can I divide all of those numbers by? What's the biggest number? And then you're going to look to see if all of your terms have, all of them have any x's in common. So number one, we're going to start by looking at the 6 and 8. What is the GCF? 2. The only thing other than 1, we're not going to include 1. So 2 is the greatest common factor. Do both of those terms have x's?
No.
No, just if I were to circle where the x's are, only this first term. So if they don't both have it, that doesn't come out to the front. And then right beside of that in parentheses, we write what's left over. So if I divide by 2, what do I have left?
3.
Well, so if I divide the 6 by 2, I've got a 3. And then those x's, none of them came to the front. So x to the 4th stayed right there. Probably put that too close. Okay. Plus, and then the 8. If I divide that by 2, what's left? 4. So basically all we did was take out the GCF. Number 2. What can you divide both of those terms by? 2. Do they both have any x's? No. Alright. So when I take out the 2, when I divide that by 2, what's left? 1x. And you can put 1x or you can just put x. I have a minus. What happens when I divide that by 2? Left with 2, that minus 2. Number 3, we have 3 terms, so we got to make sure whatever our GCF is that it'll go into all 3. So what can you divide 5, 40, and 10 by? 5. All right. Now, do they all 3 have any x's? No. Do all 3 of them have x's? No. So can't put any x out with your GCF. So now if I divide by 5, this first term, I'm just left with an x squared. Minus 40 divided by 5 is 8, and that one still had the x. The x didn't go anywhere. Plus 2. Number 4. What can you divide 2? This is really a 1. And a negative 5 by? Nothing other than 1, and we don't really care about 1. Do they all have x's? Yeah. And this becomes a little confusing for some people. So let's say that Kaylee has $8. Victoria has $5 and Shayla has $3. I want to take money from all of them and I want it to be fair. I've got to take the same amount of money. How much money am I able to do that with? We've got an $8, $5, and $3. What's the most that I can take? The most I can take is $3. If I want to be fair, I want everybody to give me the same amount. I can only take 3, right? Because if Shayla only has 3, she can't give me more. That's all she's got. So you're really looking at the lowest exponent. The most the highest number of x's I could even take out is x cubed. Because you can't take more than what one has. We're not going to put them like in depth. So this one, I didn't divide out any numbers, so I still have the 2. It started with x to the 8th, and I took x cubed. So it's left with x to the 5th. Plus x squared. So we had an x to the 5th. We brought 3 of those to the front, leaving x squared. Minus 5. Not even any x's. That one had 3 to start with. All 3 of them went to the front. And if you think about it, when we started Unit 6, we did dividing, and this is like one reason we did that. If you have 5x cubed and we divide by x cubed, the x cubes cancel and we're left with just 5. Essentially, we're dividing every term by the GCF. All right, number 5. Ooh, we got some big numbers. Yep. 56, 70, and 49. So my first thought is going to be, I'm going to say, all right, well, it can't be 2 because 49 is odd. What are the only numbers that go into 49? 7, and then 1 and 49. So the only thing, if there's gonna be a GCF, the only thing that it really could be is 7. So let's just see if it's 7. Is 56 divisible by 7? Yep. Is 70? Yep. And then 49 we know. So 7. How many x's am I able to bring to the front? 2. So x squared.
All you want to bring it to again?
Well, this guy right here has 6 in his possession. This guy has 3 in his possession. This guy has 2. We want to take an equal amount from every person. There's 3 people, right? But I'm going to take as much money as I can, as long as I'm still being fair. So if we've got $6, $3, and $2, I'm going to take $2, $2, $2. I can't ask for $3 from Shayla because she's only got 2. And I don't want to put her in debt. I'll just break her. Alright. Alright, thanks. Alright, 56 divided by 7. 8. And it still has x to the 4th. Kaylee started with her $6 and I took 2 of them. She still had the 4th. Plus 10x plus 7. And then the last one, number 6. Look at the numbers in front. What can we divide all of those by? We can't divide them all by 1. What else can we divide it by? 7. They're all 7, so divide them all by 7. Now I do see x's and y's, so we look at one of them at a time. How many x's could I bring to the front?
2. 1. What?
This guy. We've got 3 people. 1, 2, 3. I want all 3 of them to be able to give me an equal amount of x's.
So what's the x and the y stand for?
It's just two different letters. So look at the x's by themselves. We have an x to the 7th. So Kaylee has $7. Victoria has $1. Shayla has $1. What's the total amount I could take from each person? 1. So I can only take out 1 x from each person. What about y's? Do they all three have any y's in common? No, because the last guy doesn't have any y's. So if I divide out the 7 and I divide out one of the x's, I'm left with x to the 6 and I'm still left with the y. Minus, if you divide out the 7, if you divide out the x, you're just left with the y. It is when you divide could be a little confusing. So the first ones we did weren't too bad. Called different squares. This is also not bad. On the side and write down those perfect squares. Go through and fill out those blanks. 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared. Okay, there they are. When we've talked about perfect squares, we've only talked about just numbers. We've not talked about any variables. But variables could possibly be perfect squares too. In order for them to be a perfect square, if their exponent must be divisible by 2. So if I ask you to take the square root and you've got an x, you can only do that if the exponent is divisible by 2. And all you do is you divide that exponent by 2, and that takes care of the square root. So the square root of x squared. What's 2 divided by 2? 1. So x to the first, which is just x. So the square root of x squared is x. What would the square root of x to the 10th be? 5? Is that right? Did I write that right? No. What should it be? X to the 5th.
Why'd you make me do that?
Don't just say the answer is 5. X to the 5th. What is the square root of x to the 16th?
X, 8.
X to the 8th.
Yes, I like that.
Thank you. What is the square root of x to the 38th?
It's a fraction.
No.
What?
38 is divisible by 2.
2, 4, 16.
That would be 32.
No, 2,
19. X
no, it's not.
to the 19th. Yes, it is. 19 times 2 is 38.
Get the calculator out. I don't believe it. Oh my god. You're cooked.
So, we have this special formula for factoring and it's called difference of squares. What in math, what does the word difference mean? Subtraction. So if we have subtraction, notice all of these have subtraction signs. This formula only works with subtraction, and we have 2 squares. Here's the formula. So if we have a squared minus b squared. Perfect square. This is a perfect square. So like it's one of these numbers, or it's an x with an even exponent. Perfect square. Minus another perfect square. That's equal to, it's super simple. We have 2 sets of parentheses. One of them is x plus a. No, not x plus a. Gosh. Just ignore what I just did. I'm sorry. It's a plus b.
Keep messing up, man.
I know, I'm sorry. It's been a long day. I got 21 days left. And I need a break.
I got 19.
Not counting today. I don't count today. We're already here. Today doesn't count. Yeah, but I only have to wake up to come to school 21 more times.
Yeah, or 2.
Alright.
I just slept all day.
How do you get from an a squared to an a? What mathematical operation? Square root. So the first thing right there, I'm going to take the square root of that, and that's going to give me my a. So a is the square root. It's kind of hard to see, isn't it? A is the square root of x squared. And that is what?
A.
What's the square root of x squared?
Oh.
X. We just wrote it down over here.
Oh, you're talking about A.
Yeah. So my a is x. In my formula, a is x. Okay. B is the square root of 9. You kind of ignore the minus. See how what I've got boxed in, I don't have the minus boxed in. So I'm ignoring that for right now. The only reason that that's important is I can only do this formula if it's a minus. What is the square root of 9? 3. So this factors, it's a plus b, so x plus 3, x minus 3. So if I tell you to factor that, I'm asking you to break it down as much as you can, and this is your answer. Now, technically, you should be looking for a GCF every time. But there's nothing that x squared and 9 have in common. So, good deal. Number 8, there's nothing that 36 and x to the 4th have in common, so I don't have anything to do. My a, it's always the first part, whether that has an x in it or not. So a is the square root of 36, which is 6. B is the square root of x to the 4th, which is x to the 2nd, x squared. So my factors are 6 plus x squared, 6 minus x squared. Any questions? Number 9. A is the square root of 25x squared. If you have two separate things, just take the square root of them separate. What's the square root of 25? 5. What's the square root of x squared? X. Oh, forgot. B is the square root of 4, which is 2. So my factors are 5x plus 2 and 5x minus 2. Number 10. Here I see both of them have numbers, and I could have checked on number 9. Can you divide both 4 and 49 by something?
Yep.
What?
7.
4 divided by 7? Divide. 49 is an odd number, so it is not divisible by 2.
Oh, no, you can't.
No, you can't. Do they have any variables in common? No, this one is x's, those are y's. Those are two totally different, so no. So there's no GCF. So my A is the square root of 4x squared, which is what? 2x. B is the square root of 49y squared, which is 7y. And my factors are going to be 2x plus 7y, 2x minus 7y. Any questions? All right, number 11. You're like, okay, I got this. Square root of 32. It's not a perfect square. That's your hint that there probably is a GCF. Can you divide both 32 and 18 by something?
Yeah.
What? You can divide them both by 2. That is the biggest number. So when you divide those by 2, that's your GCF. What is 32 divided by 2? 16, and we have an x squared minus 9. When you have a GCF, that number needs to be part of your answer. And so it's a smart just to go ahead and pull it down to the bottom so you don't forget it. And then you do the difference of squares with what's left in here. So A is the square root of 16x squared, which is what? What's the square root of 16x squared? 4x. B is the square root of 9, which is 3. So over here beside the 2, I have a 4x plus 3, 4x minus 3. Are there any questions? Number 12. Is there anything you can divide both of those by?
Three.
They are both divisible by 3. What is 75 divided by 3? 25. 27 divided by 3? 9. And then we still have the x squared. The 3 I go ahead and bring down. And then I'm going to get my A and B. A is the square root of 25, which is 5. B is the square root of 9x squared, which is 3x. So I'm going to have a 5 plus 3x, 5 minus 3x. And now we are done.